Pues bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de Reiventándonos podcast, un podcast donde invitamos a personas que se están enfrentando a un cambio organizacional o bien nos están dando herramientas para reinventarnos hoy para el futuro. El día de hoy tenemos una invitada muy especial, su nombre es Paula Cizek de NOBL, una consultora de diseño organizacional que se encuentra principalmente en Los Ángeles, pero que también tiene en otras partes de Estados Unidos, y la verdad que nos atrae mucho su forma de ver las cosas, su forma también de hacer un cambio aterrizado y cercano. Esto va a ser en inglés, entonces, bueno, empezamos. So welcome to the podcast, Paula. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Hola a todos, un placer hablar contigo.
Wow, you have the Spanish accent, so that's great.
Yeah, but just listening to you do that intro, I'm like, yeah, this is probably better in English. I'd be a little bit slower in Spanish right now.
Yeah. For me, you have remind me of my time in Spain and in Pamplona. Was an amazing time. I miss it a lot too, but now with this contingency, I don't know where I feel safe to make a huge trip or be in many hours in an airplane.
Yeah, I know. We're all sort of trapped in our homes right now, but it does give us an opportunity to do podcasts and connect with people. So yeah. Just like you were saying, you got to find the silver lining. You got to find a little bit of hope in it.
Yeah, definitely. There's more positive things. Well, we always start with a checking round. You are used to very used to at NOBL, and okay, we always recommend this. We first time we saw it was in Holacracy in this checking round that used to before any meeting or any, we use it before any workshop or the meeting we have, so we can trying to connect and be more know more the person we have in front of us, and connect not only in the professional way, also in the personal way. Well, this check-in is more like, okay, we start to know each other, kind of what do you enjoy most to do in your life? What are kind of your hobbies,
Yeah, that's such a big question. What do you like to do? What do you like? There's a lot of things that I love doing, which unfortunately I can't do right now due to COVID. I do acro yoga. I do a lot of social dancing, like everything from blues to tango to salsa. So what I'm trying to do right now, because I can't do any of those things, is find the simple pleasures in life. Right now, I'm based in Los Angeles, and it is jasmine season. So every time you go for a walk, you can just smell this amazing jasmine just perfuming the air. The jacarandas are in bloom, so everything is so colorful here in LA. So just trying to find the enjoyable moments in life is what I'm really focused on right now.
Oh, yeah. I like that acro yoga. Wow, I don't know if I can imagine that, but sounds good. Because I'm not that flexible in my body.
You know what? It's a process, and it's really welcoming. I'm sure there is an acro yoga community where you are, and if you show up and you're willing to learn, you get flexible over time. Trust me, I'm not that flexible. Although I threatened to run off and join the circus to my parents, I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon.
Well. For me, that I really enjoy running. I'm a runner, and finally I start to running again because of this contingency. I have a sister that is a doctor, so she always reminds me, you can run, remember. Okay. So I try to run very late or very early morning to try to not see many people, and with my mask. And well, I like to write a lot. I love to write. It's like kind of for me to connect. Like at the beginning, I was like kind of a shy guy, And then after be at TED and be curator and all the stuff, start to fool it a little bit more. But I think that if I stopped writing, I stopped kind of thinking, you know. So it helps me a lot to put my thoughts and to reflect, and also to connect. I think that this continuously also many people is reading, reflecting, and that helps. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I like music a lot. I listen to jazz, and my two new favorite bands are Snarky Puppy, that from US, and Wolfpack. But it's like a happy funk band that I love it. They have such a fresh style. They're like a net of musicians. But okay, that always are shaking around.
No, that's great. Those are great names for bands. I love them. Snarky Puppy, amazing.
Really? Wow. I wish to go to see this guy. I'm a bassist, and I like a lot Michael Leach. He's a genius, and he's like a very easygoing guy. He looks like, you know, like I like that. He's not a rock star. Like, okay. Wow.
No, I guess that would be very not in keeping with the overall jazz aesthetic.
Yeah, well, that helps me to relax, and I think like I like the things that evolve, and I think like jazz is like exactly the way. Even though I like to see that work can be like jazz, you know, like everybody. Snarky Puppy had a phrase that used to that they describe as a band that everybody can find their place together. You know, sometimes the bassist make a solo, sometimes the keyboard and guitarist, and everybody like kind to serve to the band, but at the same time there's like this autonomous interdependency. You know, very easy. It's not easy to play, yes, but like, you know, like has this natural flow that I like. That it's very, very, I don't know, authentic. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it creates a space for people to improvise and come up with new ideas and build off of other people's ideas. No, I think you're right. There's a lot of parallels between jazz and work.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I miss the most. This continuously to go to a pub and see jazz and listen, and you know, I think in these guys that they are not that famous. That okay, they need as the way of living to playing jazz, but also like as a way of being in their own life. Like okay, they're used to play, they love to play, and it is not the same thing. You know, at distance, that playing and actually feel the audience. You know, but
you don't want to go to a Zoom jazz concert where everybody is in their own square.
No, and the sound is like okay, it's not the same time. You know, yeah, but well, but getting inside, I see that you have like many things in common, and you have also like fan of soccer. Well, football, soccer,
yeah.
for us, football, but okay, soccer.
Yeah.
You were a referee.
I was. I started my career as a referee for youth soccer. That's what I was doing in high school to make some extra money. And it was, I mean, I played soccer as well, kind of like a fullback striker position. But I moved into refereeing because, hey, it made money, and that was fun. Nice. Yeah, so that was, I would say, my first introduction to, you know, dealing with difficult clients and mostly the parents, right? Never the kids. Yeah. And maintaining order and getting people to listen to you with your authority, right? If you're a 14-year-old running around, why should parents actually pay attention to you, right? So it was a really interesting introduction to difficult workplaces, to managing tension on the field. And it was good exercise too. I got to run around all day.
Wow. I used to play soccer, and actually I like, but yeah, you see that the referee is not the best welcome guy or girl at the field. You know, like, okay, we need a referee, but if he or she doesn't express anything that affect us, is better. But okay, you have really resilience.
It's interesting, just thinking back, it does influence, I would say, my thinking on leadership, in that I would say the best referee, and look, we're all human, I'm not saying I didn't make mistakes, but I would say the best referee is one who disappears, right? Who is not seen. Ideally, they establish a presence or a command on the field that lets players know what they can do, what they will be punished for, and what they will be allowed to play on. And then really just the referee should go into the background and let the players do what they are best at. So I think that's something that leaders should really be thinking about too. How do you set up the conditions so that the environment is right? How do you create a healthy working environment so that you're not blowing the whistle, you're not giving red cards? That means you've lost control of the field. But instead you can really step back and let the players play.
Yeah, I haven't seen that way because, well, I'm not a referee, but now that you say, okay, that has many, yeah, you're right, and also that another thing that I noticed that you were like, you have like a master, let's say your undergraduate or your major in marketing and international business. How does that help you to now to be at mostly innovation projects as an innovation consultancy?
So I started my career as a writer, actually, at an ad agency. And I like to say my career worked backwards. So I would get products and I was supposed to write about them and convince people to buy it. But I found the problem was by the time a product got to me, it wasn't a very, like it didn't matter what I was going to say about it. It didn't meet customer needs, right? So I moved back into more marketing, brand strategy, consumer behavior. And that was great because now I was actually interacting with customers and finding out, okay, what is it that they want? What products and services can these brands create to fulfill a real need and not just put on like a marketing gloss, right? Make it sound good. And I did that for a few years, and that was very engaging and a lot of fun. I really loved being able to interact with customers and find out what their challenges were, and then go back and work with organizations to develop solutions. But if you do that long enough, you'll find that organizations don't actually have a hard time coming up with new ideas. It's really easy to come up with new ideas and solutions. What's really challenging is implementing those within the workforce. Organizations as a whole are just not set up to essentially scale innovation, right? They are set up to optimize what they already have. That is largely the nature of an organization. So that's why I moved into organizational design. It's to help these companies be able to identify new products, but then change how they work so that they can actually get those products to market, so they can actually change how they work and perform better. I think in many ways, it's a very similar process and a very similar mindset. I used to be looking at what it is that consumers wanted, the needs that they had in order to go about their lives and make their lives better. Now I'm looking at employees. Employees are my customers. What is it that they need to do their jobs better? How can they work more effectively? And how can the organization deliver it to them? So I think it's a very similar, like I said, process and mindset, just a different end user.
Yeah, it helps you. I notice because sometimes I see marketers, or design or something like that, that are very user-centered, like always focus on health. Okay, but how the users will take it, how we take it into account, that always also like intern user or certain user, consumer. And well, another thing I like a lot is your approach to the podcast and work of fiction. I like a lot because you have you connect with many people that had seen a movie, like Monster Inc. or Up in the Air, and I listened to this chapter to Up in the Air and remind me a lot about the things that can happen nowadays with this COVID and this this new way of working that feel like that organizations change, and you say that, and at the movie, this changing of face to face, later to this new software is, well, okay, we have like this new thing, and try to kind of impose. I imagine that nowadays we can have this danger to, okay, we have this change of this COVID, we have to change and do it this way, like imposing. How do you can do change to doesn't feel intimidated to, like trying to co-design a change instead of imposing it?
Yeah. We look at change as loss. Even a great change, even a change that is ultimately for the better, you still are going to give something up. A lot of times that is control, right? Nobody chose to be in this COVID situation. It happened, and now we all have to deal with it. There is a loss of time, right? If you are learning how to operate in a new way, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to take you more time to do it right. Familiarity, loss of narrative, right? We were doing things one way and now we have to do things a different way. What was wrong with the way we did it? Sometimes there's even a loss of pride, right? Sometimes you'll see leaders come in and say, well, that was the old way of doing things. That was the dinosaur way. That was terrible. Now we're going to do things the new shiny way. And unfortunately, what that says to people who've been doing the work thus far is, wow, so you're telling me all of my work was for nothing, right? Like, what was I wasting my time on that we now have to do it this new way? So there's a lot of different types of loss that people go through when there is a change. Again, even if that change is for the best and you know it's the right thing to do. So when we're working with companies, when we're working with leaders who are looking to make a big change or going through some change with their organization, we focus first on what types of loss they think the team is going to experience, and then figure out a way to address those types of loss. So right now, there's a lot of loss of control, right? There are a lot of things going on that we can't control. And so what we really encourage leaders to think about is, okay, what is it that you can control, or what can you offer people choices into? How can they get involved in making decisions, in co-creating the change, so they don't feel like change is happening to them, it's happening with them. If you give them an opportunity to participate, people are more likely to accept new ideas, right? It's the same concept of, not invented here syndrome, the idea like, oh, well, someone else came up with that, why would I get on board? If you get people involved in the change and they're making decisions, it's a lot harder later down the road for them to turn around and say, like, well, I didn't like that. That was a dumb idea. Whose idea was that? Oh, it was my idea. People are a lot less likely to criticize. So I would say identify those feelings of loss, figure out how you can help people through them, and give them as much control of the situation as you can.
Hey, you sounds, I like that this change, create change with them, like creating like this environment of trust, like, okay, this thing that we talk about before we start to record this episode, that was like, okay, this humanity that like showing themselves as they are, like is help this way or this approach you just said to be more human and be more, okay, more empathic and create or open in the conversations. I think or I can feel that is more healthy, this change that you're saying. In other thing that I like, and I feel like attracted by NOBL, because sometimes we can say, okay, we work with clients this way, but how we work internally, that like you have like this sales management too inside, and you share this equity, like very, very transparent. And sometimes at the work of consultancy is not the main thing, or it's not the way it works. How does actually helps and works in a good way through NOBL?
We call it dogs. We eat our own dog food. We try everything out on ourselves first. The first reason we do that is because we really need to engage with a exercise or an activity or a framework to understand it and to be able to explain it to others. I think that's just the best way of getting to learn a new mindset. And of course, we have our own perspective. We bring our own lens. We have backgrounds in HR, organizational psychology, operations, and bringing our experience that allows us to improve it, critique it, change it to what is appropriate for other organizations. But yeah, I mean, we really do try everything that we recommend. One of our most basic recommendations is that every organization, every team should have a series of meetings on a regular basis. You should be doing retrospectives to identify how you're working on projects and how you're working together as a team. You should be talking about customer sensing, again, user-centric. What needs are changing for your customers, and how can you make sure that you're moving towards what it is they need as opposed to being stuck in the past. So we do these things ourselves. We actually specifically mark time off in our calendars to bring the whole team together to have these conversations. And it's not easy. Like, I want to be really clear. I know everybody has crazy calendars. For us, it's also a struggle because, of course, we want to be available for clients, and their calendars are also crazy. So it's always a challenge to find the time, right? But it's important to hold those times sacred and to really make an effort to come together as a team and discuss how you're working. Because if you don't set aside that time, if you're not thinking about that, you'll just keep doing the same thing over and over. And so 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you'll find yourself in the same position. So we really try to practice what we preach, just so that we know what we're talking about and we can improve it for the client experience. On the equity part, I think what really sets us apart is that we do offer employees a portion of the company. We did that really for a couple of reasons. The main one being we wanted it to attract talent. We thought that by offering a portion of the company, by allowing greater ownership and greater input into how the company operates, it would attract the right kind of person who wants to get involved and think about how companies are run, as opposed to maybe a more intellectual or hypothetical person, and that's fine. Like, there's, that more academic perspective is needed, but we wanted someone who wanted to really get involved and commit to Nobel for the long haul. So that's why we've decided to offer equity.
Excellent. Yeah, I like, because that is too, like, where we have like this vision too of like teal organizations, humanize this purpose of wholeness, of transparency. And I think that actually I was looking these days for the corporate rebels too, these guys from Holland or Netherlands, and they say, okay, we are like the early adopters of these models. We are trying with this contingency, probably can be more rapidly grow, the percentage of people that we think like that way. But I see how you feel, and how of people that have this mindset and work with these principles. I feel like even more like free, like even more like fresh, yeah. And that helps a lot, probably. Preaching with your example and with your happiness and the way you approach to client and the way you talk and work could be like, we feel like this more normal in our days. Hope so, but.
Yeah, and I think it also, by trying things out, by using the same exercises and principles that we would use with our clients, it gives us a lot of empathy for what the client is going through. If we're struggling with an exercise, they're going to struggle too, right? So I think getting into the mindset of your customer makes you a better service provider. It makes you a better agency.
And this connecting to the next question. I think I read it from what Carol actually writes like this, from meaningful change, what it means to be meaningful change. And sometimes we face with this, okay, we have to change, but only like the methodologies but not the deep change. How do you say that we can make really meaningful change, and with all these context of the George Floyd and all the racism that we have been living last days, well, last years, but mostly on these days that we notice it, how we can really make meaningful change?
I think the first thing to keep in mind is that there's a lot of challenges right now in the United States. We have a lot going on. These are big societal issues, right? And it can feel very daunting to even know where to start. And the same within your organization. There are massive structural, hierarchical, there's legacy decisions, and just trying to figure out, how do I fix this without burning everything down and starting from scratch, right? Because you can't do that. You have to also, while you're making change, you still got to make money. You still have to produce, and you still have to serve your clients. So I think the first thing to really think about is to think small and to think within your sphere of influence. A lot of times it's easy to get distracted by all of the things that are wrong and that you can't possibly make a difference in. So I would say just find one thing that you personally can control and try and make a change there. See if it works. Maybe it won't. Maybe you'll have a terrible idea and it'll fail. That's why you should always test these things out in what we call safe to fail environments, where even if it goes wrong, it's still going to be okay. So it's figuring out what's something that I can do, because change is catching. I actually saw a really interesting study which showed that people only believe change can happen when they see change happening. So it's a little bit of chicken and the egg, right? Like if people don't see change happening, they won't believe it'll change. So they're not going to change. Sorry, hold on. You can edit all that out, right? Yeah. So I think that's really important. It's to figure out what it is you can do and to just start building on that. When people realize that change is happening, they're going to be more motivated to do it themselves. The other thing that I would really encourage people to think about in terms of meaningful work is, what is your purpose, right? What is your why? If you're going to change anything, it's going to be an uphill battle, unfortunately. Like, there's going to be things that get in the way. You might be getting in your own way. You know, you've got maybe some habits you'd like to leave behind. So it's going to be challenging. And there's definitely going to be times when you want to throw your hands up and say, I give up. I can't do it. If you connect back to why you're doing this, the greater purpose that you're trying to achieve, that can help you stay on track and do the work that needs to get done.
Yeah, I like that this thing, like, okay, change is happening, and I think like this approach also, like, okay, what is in our control in order to start advancing, because sometimes, and this is like very, very well explained with all this behavioral economics, is more, attractive for people to see or have small wins, that having like, okay, a big goal at that horizon that we don't know still is the main goal, or if we're gonna get there one day. Like, okay, we are like in this cycle of changing, in this mode of changing. Probably, yeah. I like that perspective.
I saw a tweet. This is not my idea. I stole this from the internet. But somebody said that, if you watch time travel movies, everybody's always afraid that, like, if you go back in time and you step on a butterfly or you change one thing, the entire you go back and it's a totally different future, right? But nobody ever thinks about the present. They don't think about it in that way. Everyone's like, oh, well, it's just a small thing. What am I going to do? What's it really going to change? But yeah, so think about what is that small thing you could change right now, which may have much larger effects down the road.
Yeah, we hope that we start to create a meaningful change. And thanks God, I think we are like more connected right now with you know, the social networks and everything, and people can see, okay, many people in New York is like, okay, like yelling, and in LA too, we're like kind of united on this, and this was also in Mexico actually. What happened with all the thing with George Floyd? We have like 3 days that also a policeman killed a guy, you know, and then was in another state, Mexico, also too. So people take, okay, we also see these things on Mexico. We are like in the same channel. We can, okay, and also in the embassy of the United States, people united and try to support, you know, everything. So okay, yeah, small changes impact, but if we like communicate these days, also can go bigger. What are you experimenting like? You know, like this also this urgent need of changing suddenly from the, you know, like the face-to-face to the digital world, but then the problem can still be down, you know, if we only change technology but don't change culture. It's like, okay, we are not advancing that much. How we can like kind of balancing that, you know, and not only survive, getting better with the situation?
I think that's a really great question. So many times we see clients who are focused on quote unquote digital transformation, and they're really just focused on the new tools. Everybody wants tools to solve all of their problems. It would be really nice if you could just install an app which would improve your communication and make sure that everybody got the information they needed and kept track of all your projects and also made your decisions for you. Unfortunately, these tools do not exist. There's no perfect tool. And even if there was a perfect tool, you would still have imperfect humans on both ends of that tool. And so we really encourage people to think, when you are, again, when you're making a change, when you are implementing new software, when you are adapting to new market conditions, don't neglect the people who are involved. Think about what training they're going to need in order to adapt to this new environment. What milestones should you be thinking about? How will you know that you're making progress? Again, going back to this idea that people don't believe change is happening unless they see it happening, make sure that you have very clear event milestones where you can point to it and say, look at that. We're making change. This is the right thing. We need to keep going in this direction. Celebrate those wins. Call out people when you see them doing the right thing. Nothing is more important, I would say, than rewarding the behavior that you want to see. And it might take a little bit for people to adapt to that. But I would really encourage to not forget about the human factor whenever you're introducing a new anything really within your workplace.
Yeah, and I think also like it is very connected with the next. You know, like probably this Cobra effect is still around. You know, like okay, the temptation of giving linear solutions to complex problems. You know, and also it's like this also like teach agility for teaching agility, not like being agile, that not, you know, like feel really that things are going further. How can we go even further than the mainstream, you know, like the things that we feel tempted to okay, this sounds cool, okay, apply, this sounds cool, also apply.
We like to call that management by book club, where you read a book and you're like, oh my God, this is gonna, again, solve all my problems, let's implement it. And then the next month you read another book and you're like, wait a minute, this is the right way to do it. So yes, that is definitely a potential concern that we caution leaders that we work with about. I think the most important thing when you're talking about change, like, yes, it should be user-centric. I don't think people actually know a lot of times what the underlying problem is. A lot of times you will come up with, like you said, the obvious solution. It might be obvious to you. All those other chumps, all those other idiots, I don't know why it's not obvious to them, right? You're the only one with the right answer. And a lot of times that is actually a presenting problem. That is what seems to be the issue, but there's underlying issues that need to be dealt with first. So another way of saying that is it's a symptom and it's not the cause. So you see this in, for example, meetings, right? A lot of people hate meetings. They're inefficient. They don't get a lot accomplished. You have to get your real work done after you leave the meeting. So why don't meetings work? There's a lot of potential reasons. One reason could be that it's actually a performance. Everybody is coming into the room to show off to the one leader to demonstrate that they're really smart. And they collect praise for being either the smartest person in the room or the person who shoots down ideas, right? You'll have that person who's like, oh yeah, but have you considered, or like, well, we tried that and here's what's, right? So that's a way of being smart. It could be that as a team, you don't have a way of making decisions. It could be that some people think that they should make the decision. Other people think that it should be majority rules, right? So there's not alignment around how you make decisions. So there's a lot of potential issues. And so again, what we really recommend is don't assume that you have the right solution. Don't assume that you have the obvious solution, but figure out a way to test it in a small, safe way. Go to your next meeting and say, hey guys, I just want to try this one thing. If it doesn't work, we can go back to the old way of doing things. I just want to try it, this one time and see if it works. We call that skateboarding. We stole that from Spotify. The idea is that if you want to get from point A to point B, you could build a Cadillac, but you've never built a Cadillac. I've certainly never built a Cadillac. If we're building a Cadillac from scratch, it's going to take us a long time. We're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. And at the end of it, it might be that the person doesn't even want to go from point A to point B. They want to go from point A to point Q, right? So instead, build a skateboard. Build the simplest, cheapest, fastest potential solution and test it out. Again, you and I don't know how to make a Cadillac, but we could absolutely take a piece of wood and nail it to some wheels. It wouldn't be pretty. I'm not saying it would be safe or a smooth ride, but it would get you from point A to point B. And you would immediately start getting feedback from your customer about like, well, I didn't like the ride. I felt like I needed more balance. I actually wanted to go to point C instead, right? You're starting to collect that feedback and you can start to improve it. You're testing a hypothesis. And so in your workplace, when you think you have the obvious solution, maybe you do, maybe you got it right the first time, but figure out a way that you can actually test it and get feedback and information back so that you can work on improving that solution.
Yeah, well, we have like many things to talk about. I think that it will deserve another another chapter or something like that. But I like to ask, like, as also, like, I start with a checking round. We also like finish like like this view of the future. What thing that illuminates you? What you wish to happen? Your best case scenario at the personal level, at the future of work.
Big question. The future of work. If I'm dictator, I think that's already a concern. Because again, it's not just my vision. It's everybody's vision. What we like to think of when we're thinking about the future of work, and when we at NOBL think about what we want our personal purpose and mission to be, we want to create working environments in which people have the opportunity to do their best work, in which they are free to bring new ideas up and to experiment with new and better ways of working, so that they're more engaged, they're more productive, they aren't held back. I think a lot of people feel simply held back. There's too much bureaucracy, there's too much politics within the organization. they don't move fast enough. So I would love to be able to remove obstacles and let people's creativity and problem solving really come to the forefront. So that's certainly the dream. We don't think we're going to fix it in the next year or even 10 years, but that is our long-term why, our long-term purpose.
Yeah, but I think you're already doing something, or at least.
I hope so.
Yeah, for sure. For at least with the small, small change right now, and I think at the end, many people will notice that. Okay, as we said before, we start to record this contingency, this COVID. I think this is reflecting in a personal way what I really want, what we want as a community, what do we want as a company, as an organization, and asking for the big and important questions.
Yeah, don't go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
COVID gives you a perfect excuse to try things new, right? A lot of teams have gone remote for the first time. A lot of teams have had to switch to new tools or abandon old ways of working. Don't necessarily go back to the way you did things just because that's the way you've always done it. Again, thinking about change and loss, really think through what you should keep and what is okay to let go.
But well, I think it's a good point to close our conversation. I really love it and appreciate, and we have many things in common, even though we are like different countries. And well, hope you enjoy too and like this episode.
Gracias por invitarme.
Muchas gracias. I will say goodbye in Spanish. Pues muchas gracias por escuchar este episodio de Reiventándonos podcast. Es dirigido por un servidor, Luis Salas, y producido por Polymath, una red de consultores que acompañamos a las organizaciones en su cambio organizacional y las acompañamos en el futuro. Bueno, pues thank you very much. See you. Hope soon, or keep in touch.
Hasta luego.